Hey everybody, welcome to this Caregiver Coffee. My name is Matthew Estrad. I'm a gerontologist in St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana, and I've been partnering with Coast for over 10 years. All of that time as a caregiver support group facilitator, and some of that time as an educator, trainer, and consultant. And it's my pleasure to be with you for this video to talk about care outside of the home. So in a previous video, we talked about in-home care, where we talked about respite, we talked about home health, we talked about hospice, and this time we're talking about care when the person has moved out of the house, no longer in their residence or living in the community, as we say. And so there are variations. It's not just like one big blob of outside the home or nursing home or facility or anything like that. There's actually some differences between them. And some people may move through most of them, and some may just go to one of them. It just kind of depends on that person's life course and at what point of their life they end up moving out of their home, if they do, because there's still many people who live their life, their full life at home. They pass away at home, and certainly most people prefer that. They prefer to do that. So let's get into the differences, and this will help you, I hope, kind of discern where you are in your stage for yourself or for your loved one, and you kind of give you like this broad landscape of how things are in most communities. So I should say that this is going to be many communities. Certainly in a small rural town, it might not you might not have all of these options, but it's possible. All right, so before we get into this topic of these out of the home care facilities options, just a little bit about the caregiver support group. I talk about this in every video. It's sort of a preamble or housekeeping. So because I don't know if someone's going to just see this video or they're going to see all of the videos. So the caregiver support group that I facilitate for the Council on Aging at St. Tammany, it happens every Tuesday evening, unless it's a holiday like Mardi Gras or Christmas, 4th of July, you name it. We are there 6 p.m. Central to 7:30. Sometimes we're in person, sometimes we are remote. The first Tuesday of the month, we're at the Slidell Activity Center. The second Tuesday of the month, we're on Zoom. So it kind of looks like this. You can use your computer, your smartphone. You can just dial in with your phone if you want to just use voice. The third Tuesday of the month, we're at the Covington Senior Activity Center. And the fourth Tuesday of the month, we are back on Zoom. And sometimes we meet on the fifth Tuesday of the month. We usually, if we want to do that, we usually get approval. But and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just take that Tuesday off. So if you want to learn about where we're going to be and not miss any of the changes with holidays or anything like that, be sure to go to the Coast website, coastseniors.org. Go to caregiver support. You'll find through a few clicks, you'll find the latest flyer. Right now, we have July and August, and we publish it every 2 months, and it will tell you where we are, if there's any date changes, and when we're on Zoom, it gives you the link and the phone number and all that kind of stuff. So you want to do that. You can also find my contact information, my email, my phone number on there. And lastly, with that flyer, you can join. There's a link or a QR code to scan to join the private email list. I send an email out every Tuesday morning, reminding you where we're going to be, and along with that, along with the that flyer, which we send out through that also. So when there's a new one and you're on the email list, you automatically get that. So. All right, with that complete, I hope that you'll join us for a support group if you haven't before. We have a great group. Excuse me, I might yawn a few times. Long day. But we have a wonderful group. They're very welcoming. So no matter whether you join us on Zoom or you join us in person, I think that you'll really enjoy it. And I know that we'll enjoy meeting you. All right, so with that out of the way, the first outside of the home community or facility we'll talk about is independent living. Independent living is, and I'm going from least restrictive to most restrictive. So we'll go independent living. we'll talk about assisted living, and then we'll talk about memory care, and then some other. But those are like the main three that we'll cover. But there are others. So independent living is almost like it sounds. Independent living might be an apartment complex that caters to older adults, and they're set up so like there's laundry. There might be a common laundry area unless it's in the apartment. There might be they might serve meals so you don't have to cook, but then the apartment might have a kitchenette and a fridge and microwave, might even have a stove. Um, uh, the whole idea behind independent living is that you're able to live there, but then in some ways you get services. You kind of come and go as you please. You don't have to do landscaping and cutting the grass and all that kind of stuff. And, they maintain the gardens and all that kind of stuff. So, they'll typically have, activities that you can attend or not attend. You can have visitors come to you. So it's not very restrictive at all, especially because you come and go. So what you'll want to do when you're looking at independent living or any setting that we're talking about, you're going to interview that organization, that facility. I know sometimes people don't like the word facility, but I'll kind of use that interchangeably with living, um, uh, with the specific type, like independent living or assisted living. So you're going to be interviewing and finding out what services they offer, what do they not offer, how restrictive is it, what are the costs, what kind of activities do they do, etc. So that's independent living. Next is assisted living. Now, this is when someone needs a little more care in their activities of daily living. So they might need help walking, they might need help bathing, but they are still cognitively intact. They're able to go to the bathroom themselves generally. They're able to feed themselves. They're able to do a lot of things, but they might also need help with medication management. They have activities. At assisted living, they typically are definitely serving a meal. In assisted living, typically there's not like a stove. There might be a microwave. There might be a refrigerator. But you're starting to see like there's more things that the facility is going to do and less things that the client or the resident is doing or can do. So you kind of starting to see kind of like things shift a little bit. When somebody develops a cognitive impairment, if they do, not when, but if they do, then they may move neatly into the memory care unit of the assisted living facility. And this is typically a unit where the person cannot leave on their own accord. There might be a keypad or a badge swipe or something like that for the staff. And they're not so, it's so that they're not able to eventually walk out of the whole building. But hopefully, if for that memory care, for the restrictiveness that it does have and pretty much should have, for safety, hopefully there are walking gardens. And I've seen really nice memory care units where it's like an open floor plan where you have a kitchen in there that everyone can kind of gather around the kitchen counter, like a big kitchen counter, and have meals and bake cookies and play games and things like that. So leading the staff will lead activities. They might be different activities with slight changes than what you might see in assisted living or independent living. So that is memory care. Um, then there's sort of like a different model that has been around for decades, really, because my grandmother was in one of these facilities in the 90s, but I'm starting to see more of them now. And these are called resident homes. And this is when a business comes and they purchase a single family home in a neighborhood, one like you probably grew up in, and they retrofit. They widen doorways, they knock down walls, they make rooms bigger, or they might add rooms. They might have some bigger common areas, all because what they're trying to do is basically create an assisted living facility, but on a much smaller scale. So there might be four to eight people, depending on how large it is. Um, I really like these models. I mentioned my grandmother was in one. She was there with three other ladies, and there was always at least a licensed practical nurse that was there with them. And it's just a more homely environment. Um, and it feels more like a home. It's not big and have high ceilings and chandeliers and things like that. They still have activities, though maybe not on the same scale because it's a lot, not there's less people. But they'll still have activities and they have meals together. And it just seems to be more of a natural thing and a better ratio of residents to staff. So, I would definitely, consider checking those out while you're looking at other facilities. Next, we have nursing homes and skilled nursing facilities. So sometimes a nursing home is simply a nursing home, but sometimes it also has with it a skilled nursing facility that does rehab for someone after surgery, or if there's been some kind of injury and they're healing up, they might live there temporarily, while also receiving their rehab. Um, at least in Louisiana, nursing homes are typically medic for the Medicaid, or paid through by Medicaid. Medicaid is a insurance that is run by the state. So each state will have different requirements. They might be similar, but they're going to be unique. They have certain to qualify for Medicaid, one would need to have a certain threshold of um, of monthly salary that they have coming in through their pension or their benefits and things like that. They have to have under a certain threshold of assets, stocks and bonds and property and vehicles. And our state of Louisiana has different rules. It usually changes, not too much, but changes every year with because it has to be approved. And there's things where if it's a married couple, the spouse that does not need to go into a nursing home can live in the home and have one vehicle. So those are not taken away from them. Then that person, the spouse who does qualify physically for a nursing home can qualify for Medicaid if all the requirements are met. They can still go and receive that benefit. Um, Typically, the assisted living facilities and the independent facilities that I've talked about already, and memory care, those are typically private pay, and the residences. Sorry, so everything I've talked about up until now has been private pay. Um, of course, if you have a really good long-term care policy that you got a long time ago, that can help contribute to typically to care outside of the home, the facilities we've been talking about, as well as inside the home services that we talked about before, which would really, I guess, just be the respite and the companion services, because the other two things we talked about last time, hospice and home health, are covered by insurance already. So anyway, so going back to long-term care policy that can pay for the out-of-pocket type facilities. Now, nursing homes, many times those are not private pay, although you might have to supplement if need be. So you just have to look on a case-by-case basis on those. There are uh, organizations and facilities called CCRCs, Continuing Care Retirement Communities. And this is where someone basically puts down a sum of money, a large sum of money, and they sort of like buy into this living there. And then they will live there. They can live there independently and receive services, meals, and all that, whatever, things that they choose to do, swimming and, working out and stuff like that. But then there's also on the same campus, is assisted living and memory care. So it's kind of like you progress as you and your body progress through these stages. Eventually, you will go from independent living to assisted living, where you may stay forever. I mean, well, until you pass away. Or if you have a cognitive impairment, if that develops, then you go into memory care. But the whole point is that you're there on the campus. You don't have to move except to go perhaps to a different building or a different room, depending on your care needs. So that's a CCRC. And then a really neat type of care that is outside of the home, but you don't stay there, is adult day centers or adult day health centers. It could be they could be used interchangeably, those terms. And this is where you typically drop off an older adult with dementia or without dementia that for so that they have engagement and so that they are safe during the day. So this could be because that they are no longer safe to be at home while the spouse works or while the spouse goes and does other things like other caregiving things or just to get a break. They would drop off their loved one in the morning and then pick up in the afternoon or evening. The hours are kind of are flexible as far as when you want to pick them up, and you pay typically one rate for the day, and it includes snacks, meals. It includes activities and things like that. So it's a great model. Just know that you're dropping them off and picking them up at a certain time, and they're not staying there. And along with that, there's something called PACE. And PACE is where someone they would have to qualify to go, and they're going to receive meals, activities, engagement, and they're also going to be receiving some kind of health care. It might be they might see their primary care physician there. They might receive some rehab there. So it's just a wonderful program that you should check out. It's not in all communities. We have a handful of them in the state of Louisiana. So it's worth checking out to see if you qualify, if that sounds interesting to you. They always part of their services is also transportation. So just checking my list, making sure we're going. Um, we've gone through all of the different things. Now there might be some that change from place to place. There might be some creative places like greenhouses. These are like more natural um, uh, nursing homes or facilities where you have a bird or you have a fish, and it's a really neat concept, and really tries to return as much autonomy and dignity to the person as the resident, gives them something to nurture, something, so it gives them purpose, gives, they have plants, and other places can have that too, but this is like a whole mindset, a whole culture um, for these particular homes. So I would say no matter where you are, you want to make sure that you understand how much what their level of service and level of care is, what things cost extra, because many times medication management, dispensing of medications costs additional funding, no matter what setting that you're in. Ask about what type of training they have for older adults, and also if they're taking care of someone with a cognitive impairment, what is their philosophy at that facility? What is the training level? Who does the training for them? This is all very important. What is their staffing like and their culture like? I don't know how you could tell this, but does the nursing home administrator do they know the names of all the staff? That's sort of like this, having relationships, building relationships is, something really important for appreciating um, employees and team members who have a very difficult job and don't get paid very much money. A lot can be helped by the culture. So, and the training. So, I hope this was helpful. Last thing I'll mention is that there are individuals in most communities that will assist families in figuring out what the right setting is based on the budget, based on what they're looking for. They're called placement specialists, and there's several. There are national companies, there are local consultants that do this, and many times they'll do it for free because they're getting a commission straight from the facility that you choose. And on its face, that may sound like a conflict of interest. The important thing, what I think, what makes this okay and fair and ethical is that you as the client are the person that picks the place where you're going to reside or your loved one is going to reside. The placement specialist is going to help kind of whittle them down into a short list, help you go toward them, introduce you to people there. The staff talk to, and just kind of like help figure out is this is this the place for you? Is this a place for me? That type of thing. So and if you're using a placement specialist, of course you don't want to feel forced into anything like that. So it is your decision, and that's what makes it ethical, in my opinion. But if you have different opinions on that, I would be, open to hearing from your experience. But I know a lot of the placement specialists, and from what I can see, they do a great service. So so consider that, especially it's because it's not a charge and you ultimately make that decision. So, and sometimes they can even help with the in-home care, if you're not ready. Like there are many people who have looked at um, outside facilities before they were ready, or when they thought they were ready, but they realized, you know what, we can probably supplement the care at home with respite, with sitters either during most of the day or around the clock and that sort of thing. So they should be able to help you and refer you to some places as well. So, all right, y'all. We're at the end of this topic. I hope this has been really helpful for you to kind of know the major differences between this continuum of care, as we call it, in the outside facilities. I hope that you continue to do your homework and figure out what is right for you, and that you start looking and thinking about this before it's an actual crisis. That is the best case scenario, that you kind of have some ideas, you kind of have a short list. You've maybe gone into to a few places just to kind of look around, kind of like a surprise visit also. So thank y'all for being here for this Caregiver Coffee. If you like this video, please share it with people via email or text, or, I know we're a YouTube channel. We're on YouTube now, but also on Facebook. So share that with people, whether they live in St. Tammany Parish or not. The facilities and services we talk about in these videos are typically found in many communities and will apply for that. But of course, look at everything, gather your data, gather your prices and all that kind of stuff, and make a good decision. So, all right, y'all. Well, thank you for spending this time with me. I look forward to being on your phone screen or computer screen in the future with another Caregiver Coffee. Bye for now.